Jedi Master Vernestra Rwoh has made her live-action debut in The Acolyte, so what do you need to know about her past and origins? Today I'm going to cover her history from the books and comics. Vernestra Rwoh was created by author Justina Ireland for the High Republic Publishing Initiative, which established the era in which The Acolyte takes place. She technically first appeared in the book Light of the Jedi, but her first real adventure was in A Test of Courage. She was a newly promoted Jedi Knight at the young age of 16 and was seen as a bit of a prodigy. While traveling on a passenger ship, a group of marauders called the Nile sabotaged the vessel, but Vernestra, a Padawan named Imri Kentaros, and a young gifted scientist named Avon Staros got out in an escape pod. They crashed on a hostile planet where Imri had to grapple with the dark side after losing his master in the passenger ship's explosion. After they were rescued, Vernestra decided to take Imri as her own Padawan. During that story, she also revealed that she had modified her lightsaber to become a light whip, which wasn't exactly something all the other Jedi were cool with. They were weapons known to be used by Night Sisters at some point in history, although Vernestra explains that they were also used by Jedi back during the Sith Wars to adapt to the fighting styles of their enemies. She made the modification after a vision came to her, and she was certain it was the will of the Force. I'll talk about the weapon more when we actually see it in the show, but I think it's a sign that Vernestra, at least when she was younger, was more concerned with listening to the Force rather than strictly adhering to dogma or the rules. In the novel Out of the Shadows, Vernestra meets a very old woman named Mari Santeca who was held captive and being kept alive by the Nile. She was able to use the Force to find hyperspace paths which the Nile could weaponize. Before dying, Mari passed a vision to Vernestra, and from that point forward she began experiencing more visions when she traveled through hyperspace and sometimes even saw glimpses of or held conversations with Mari Santeca. After the events of the book Mission to Disaster in the Fallen Star, Imri was thought to be dead in the destruction of Starlight Beacon. Vernestra spent about a year on her own away from the Jedi Order as a Wayseeker. That type of Jedi was someone who operated outside of the Jedi Council, following the will of the Force more than the Order itself. That lines up with the creation of her light whip. But she was feeling hopeless in the face of the Nile and their senseless destruction, fearing the Jedi Order couldn't defeat them. Now I'm going to get into details from Phase 3 of the High Republic, specifically the book Defy the Storm, which came out somewhat recently. I won't be talking about Temptation of the Force, which Vernestra will be appearing in, because that book isn't out at the time of releasing this video. But Vernestra learns that Imri actually survived the fall of Starlight Beacon and was trapped in Nile space. But he had spent his year behind enemy lines, helping the people of the planet he was on. He wasn't consumed by hopelessness, but instead continued to fight the Nile even on a smaller scale. When Vernestra realized her Padawan spent his time better than she had chosen to, her hope and sense of duty was restored, and she knighted Imri, who stayed in Nile territory to continue the fight. And that's the basics of Vernestra's story so far. She will be appearing in future books, and obviously we know she survives the events of the High Republic Publishing Initiative because 100 years later she is seen as a well-respected Jedi Master. I will say, I'm a little bummed to see her so worried about what the political enemies of the Jedi think. The way she talks about Osha in the premiere episode, it seems like she's more concerned with resolving the issue quickly than she is finding the truth. But she changes her tune in the second episode, so at least she's not inflexible. I'm also not saying this is out of character for her. It's been 100 years and we don't know how Vernestra's story will end in the books and comics. I can already see those stories potentially setting up a path for this gifted student of the Force to eventually become more dogmatic. That might be her primary arc, we simply don't know yet. And even if the books don't conclude her story that way, a lot can happen to a person in a century of living. Leslie Headland reads the books. She knows about the light whip. I can't imagine she would have pulled Vernestra into the story just for the sake of it. I might revisit her full arc once the books and comics wrap up in 2025. But for now, I think Vernestra's characterization can show us what living in an institution like the Jedi Order can do to a young free thinker. She was seen as young and gifted and unique, making a light whip, listening to the Force, and carving out her path, but the Acolyte is meant to take place at the end of the High Republic era, when the Jedi have just begun to lose that individuality. They become more standardized in their appearance and their philosophy. Even though it bums me out to see Vernestra possibly going down that path, I do think that's what we're supposed to understand from the character, at least for now. We know she's still got that light whip, she's still got that free-thinking spirit in there somewhere. Maybe we'll get to see it come back out. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Acolyte coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page, where we'll release our video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as they come out. As always, thanks for watching, and for light and life.